Hi, welcome back to another episode of Coldstream Rod Shop. I'm Derek Fraser. In this week's video, we're going to be working on the 32 5-window coupe, but I also had to stop and take care of a few things before I get to that. One of the things that I talked about in a couple episodes ago was that I had a really bad drone on the 32 Ford pickup. I originally had mufflers onto it, some glass packs, and it was just unbearably loud for some reason or other. Then I went and got some chambered mufflers. I replaced it with that, and it was better, but it still wasn't good enough. So what I did, I went out and I bought some Shorty Porter mufflers, and I stuck them in like a resonator. Maybe I could have actually replaced it with the chambered mufflers, but what I did, I don't know if you can see underneath here or not, if the camera lady can show it. You can see down there I've got the two chambered mufflers, and then up behind it you can see the two blue Porter mufflers that I put in as a resonator. So it actually took about 90% of the sound out. Still sounds like a hot rod. Don't have to wear earplugs anymore driving it, which kind of blew me away and surprised me because I didn't have the same problem over there with the Model A when I had chambered mufflers on it. But it might have something to do with the Lakester style headers that I have onto it. So another thing we did over here on the Model A was when I put this together, I had run some kind of copper lines for the fuel lines, and I had some copper lines down for the transmission and stuff. Kind of wanted to tidy it up to make it look like my 32 Ford pickup. So basically I installed some AN6 black lines, some braided steel lines from the fuel pump, and then from the fuel pump back a little ways. This comes all the way up, and then all the way over here on the other side I installed a fuel pressure gauge onto it to kind of tidy it up and show. Now I can check what the fuel pressure is because I'm using the mechanical fuel pump on this. I'm not using an electric fuel pump with a regulator. The other thing I did, and I think the camera lady will have a hard time showing it, was the transmission lines here were kind of ugly copper lines. They were starting to turn a little green. I just kind of wanted to tidy it up. So I basically ran the same thing, some AN6 lines right here, all the way back to the transmission. So those are all in, everything doesn't leak, and it's running good. And since the car had been running for probably 8 years, I decided to take the carburetor off and take it up to DWA Automotive up in DeBert, the guy that does my engine work. We completely rebuilt the carburetor, put a whole new gasket kit into it, ultrasonic cleaned it, because here through the winter, I mean, they sit for so long, the gas evaporates out, leaves crap in the carburetor. I just thought it was a good time to just do a preemptive clean on the carburetor. So that's all done, and she's working fine now. So over in the other garage, we're going to walk over. One thing, when I started working on the 32 5-window coupe, and I found that I was tripping over the 40 Plymouth frame because we changed basically projects. So I decided just basically to pull everything out, sweep the floor, and kind of reorganize. So for those of you who don't know, this is our 32 Ford Roadster project that we'll be working on later. Ultimately, it will have a Y-block, 292 Y-block motor into it, basically the same chassis as what we have in the other two cars. So pulled that out, moved in the 40 Plymouth over here. I can back it up right now to the wood stove, so it's kind of out of the way. My plan is to bring the Roadster in here, tuck it in up here, and then now I've got more space to work on the 32 5-window coupe. And it's going to be actually closer to stuff, so I won't have to actually be pulling hoses and wire and extension cords over the Plymouth frame. And just basically have more room to work onto it. This also hopefully is on its way out. It's a 390 FE engine that we're put on Marketplace right now for my son-in-law, so hopefully that'll be gone, free up some space. But the next thing here on a 32 5-window coupe is I did the passenger side, then I'm going to start working across the back here, make some repairs here, and then I'll start coming through here on the passenger side. The passenger side isn't actually all that bad except for a couple bullet holes, and then of course there's a stress crack here in the top that I'll have to fix, and the front part of the drip edge. So hopefully I can get most of that done in this episode, but once I bring everything back in here, I'll be back onto this. So I've been quite busy since I moved everything around the shop so I could work on this more easily. One of the things I did was I basically dressed up all the metal with the flapper wheel to get it down to close to the bare metal, get some of the paint off and the loose rust. What that did though was it revealed some more imperfections and more dents than I actually thought were there. So I've been cleaning that up and working away at the same thing as what I did on the side here. Basically the same thing as before. I mean, pound the dent out, metal was stretched, you know, use the propane torch and the air and whack it with the hammer to kind of knock the dents down, shrink the metal, because like I said previously, you know, if there's a big dent in, metal's stretched, you pop it out, there's going to be a high spot, you got to find some way of shrinking that metal down. And like the technique I typically use is I heat it up with the propane torch, I give it a little tap with the hammer to push the metal back down, and then I quickly cool it with air. That tends to shrink it. There's other techniques that you can use. You know, some people use shrinking wheels, acetylene torch, but essentially apply heat, metal thicks up, and then when you quench it and knock it down, you can actually shrink the metal. So worked around that one quite a bit. I've been working away along the side here. And like I said, there's things popping up that I didn't see, but I guess that's the whole purpose of cleaning the metal down. Over here, there was a really big hole. I thought maybe it was a bullet hole. It wasn't. It almost looks like somebody took an axe pick and just drove it in there. So right now that's all welded up. That's all nice and flat. I'm happy with that. Then I've been working along the side here, knocked a couple more dents out, and then over here, I think I showed earlier, or we'll show you a picture, there were actually two bullet holes. There was one here, and one went right through the drip rail here. So this one I welded up, and it's nice and flat. I don't have to dolly it that much, actually. The one nice thing about when you have a hole and you build it up, that weld will actually naturally try and shrink some of the metal in. So that one's nice and tight. The bullet hole that went through the drip edge here, I've welded it from behind, I've welded it in the front, I've got it dressed up right now. There was also a large dent here in this drip rail, the same way there was on the other side. And what I used to knock it out was basically this air hammer chisel that I modified in the last episode. I just grooved it up. And in this case, I didn't put it on the air chisel. I just was able to take this like this and actually just use a hammer, and I was able to knock the dent out of the bottom here. So quite happy with that so far. Gonna keep on working my way down here. There's another dent actually that was revealed that I should have known was there, but I'm gonna have to knock that out as well. I don't know if you can see that or not. Then on the inside, if the camera lady wants to go over to the other side, I'll show you what we did on the inside and talk about that a little. So on the inside, much like I did on the passenger side, I had to remove the wood above the door. It was completely rotten out. And so what that revealed, you know, it like gets me access to knock some of the dents out. And then these two screws here, I used the same technique as I did before. Basically heat them up with the propane torch, take some paraffin wax, put it on the hot threads, make sure that the paraffin wax works its way down to the threads, and those out. I'm batting 100 so far. So those came out quite easily, so I was happy with that. That's done. So what I'm going to do now is and actually the rear window wood, I still haven't taken it out, but I'm going to have to take this out to replace the back piece and the bottom piece on both sides. Not sure if that's going to be done this episode or not, but it's part of working around the top of the coupe here. So I'm going to keep on working across the top, try and get, I guess, as much done as I possibly can on this roof in this episode. So I ran out of gas in the shop, so I couldn't really do any more welding. And seeing how we've only been to 2 car shows this year, I decided to take the night off. We're going to take the 32 pickup up to a little meet and greet at a little diner not far from here, and actually get the car out and go to a mini car show. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. It's a little different than the other ones. Please like, share, tag, and subscribe. And of course, please send your comments below. Just going to get her in and we'll drive her down the road. She's a whole lot quieter than it used to be.